Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Hoop Hogs Video Mailbag. I'm Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas and the Pod at the Palace, coming to you on this Saturday morning with another one of our Arkansas basketball Q&A video series requests here. And I got to tell you guys, I mean, buddy, shout out to the 7 DMs I received within an hour the other day. Once the Tony Bennett at Virginia retirement news came out asking if Arkansas could go after any of its players. I mean, I got flooded with it, and I was like, ooh, this is perfect for a mailbag because everybody wants to know. And so here we are with this one. Just a tough situation down in Virginia. My college coach actually is he's on staff down there at Virginia. So I think that those guys on staff had a decent idea that this was coming or that it could be coming. But I think the idea was, if Tony Bennett left this close to the season, that the staff would have a better chance of taking over the team for the year in the interim and kind of maybe proving themselves in an effort to get the job, full time or whatever moving forward. To me, just wild behavior, though, to do this 3 weeks before the season opener, not because there's scandal at Virginia, not because there are any, health concerns with Tony Bennett or anything. And thankfully so, obviously, but just because you hate NIL on the transfer portal. And you just give up on the guys who signed up to play for you and have worked for you the entire summer and in the preseason, and you're finally getting ready to get rewarded with a game, you just quit. That's crazy to me. But I don't know, man. Like when it's time, it's time. I guess when and you make the move. So I wish him, all the luck in the world. But I'm not sure about the players, though. I mean, this close to the season. Listen, I think there's a decent amount who would just, are just so excited to play anyway. And they've been practicing together. It's kind of a brotherhood at this point. You think they might just kind of stick together in the interim and just play out the season. But for any guys who say, hey, like this ain't what I signed up for. I'm not wasting a year of eligibility at a place where, the guy I came to play for kind of screwed me over here this close to the season. Like I wouldn't blame those guys one bit at all. I don't know, man. But at any rate, housekeeping notes on this. Very important, okay? As we know, whenever there's a coaching change, even this close to the season, a 30-day window to transfer opens for the players on those rosters. Now, with that being said, I don't believe that any of them would be immediately eligible. And it's not because of the NCAA and basketball, but because they wouldn't be able to get enrolled in their new school until January. So that's one part of it. So it's not like they could pick up a transfer from Virginia now and then he's playing, next week against Kansas or whatever. Secondly, though, unless you're a grad transfer, which Virginia actually does not have a single one, technically you can't transfer from one school to another and compete in the same academic year. Like you wouldn't be eligible to do that. Like a guy could enter the portal and commit to Arkansas and transfer and get to campus in January and practice and be with the team, but he wouldn't be eligible to play until next season. You could probably appeal that and have a pretty good case given the circumstances here, but like you would have to go through that process. And we know the NCAA is very, very slow with those things. So on the surface, that's probably a no-go. And, unless you wanted to really fight it and had the luxury of doing that, and then you're just kind of at the mercy of the NCAA. So, the short answer to that too long didn't read version is probably not for Arkansas here. I also don't believe that Arkansas would do anything immediately. However, it is worth noting that they're dealing with a number of injuries right now. What if something was more serious than we know, which I don't think that's the case, but what if they've gone through all these practices and they realized maybe they missed on an evaluation and they're not quite as deep as they thought, whatever. A situation like this is an opportunity for like a get out of jail free card in a lot of ways. And you can also add some depth, more bodies in practice, even if, and if you really like a guy, somebody who could practice with you for an entire season and then be eligible next year. It's almost like having another returner added into the mix. There's a lot of value in that. Even if you wanted to go through an appeal process to see if you could get them cleared right away, if you needed them, you could do that. But still, just having them in practice and entrenched in the culture and familiar with their teammates and ready to not miss a beat and being there the entire summer in the off season, there's a lot of benefit to that. So it's at least worth keeping an eye on whether that helps them this season or not. There are two guys on the Virginia roster that Cal and Arkansas were directly connected to during portal season. The first is a former 5-star Duke transfer, TJ Power. who just so happens to stand 6'9", 221, so a big body there. He was a role guy for the most part last year at Duke. I think he played in 26 games for him. He averaged a couple points and a rebound per game, but he was really productive for him at times. Excuse me. He shot, I think, just under 36% from three, over 85% from the free throw line. A guy who is really primed for a sophomore surge. I think Virginia is really counting on him to be a really good player there. And again, I don't know if any of those guys are going to explore their options or not, but I do know that Cal and Arkansas were in touch with him when he was in the portal there. So why would he be interested in Arkansas? Well, he did come to Bud Walton Arena, actually knocked down a couple of first half threes in that Duke game, but he witnessed one of the best atmospheres in college basketball last November. I mean, he couldn't have not been impressed by what he saw at Arkansas. So maybe that's something that appeals to him. I don't know. Another guy who really intrigued me is maybe like a 9th or 10th man option in the portal in this past offseason was Elijah Saunders. If you guys remember that name, another one that Arkansas was kicking the tires on, 6'8", 240-pound forward who was at San Diego State. And so we know that he's very well coached. We know that he's tough, defensive-minded, physical. You have to be to come out of that program. Really was a solid role player for the Aztecs. He averaged 6.2 points, 3.5 boards in 20 minutes per game. He made 39 threes, so over a three per game, 96% free throw shooter. That's good, I think. And he had the experience of being on that Final Four team a couple years ago. So, again, one that Arkansas kicked the tires on. Maybe if he was a guy who, wanted to test the waters and go somewhere else, and he's a guy you could bring in that could help you throughout the course of the season and be a guy that can contribute the next year. I don't know. So, a couple names to consider there. I'm thinking other connections here. I know Jalen Warley, an interesting case with him. He's a 6'7" wing transfer out of Florida State who's from Philly. And so we know that Calipari has a ton of connections up there and he loves him some Philly guys. So, maybe one to watch if he were to decide to make a move. Now he's a senior. So I don't know if he just wants to play it out at Virginia this year with the interim coach and move on, or if he would want to, maybe transfer somewhere and just try to give it a go next year in a better situation, because this is a tough deal for these kids. I hate it for him, but nice player for Florida State. Averaged 7.5 points, 2.6 boards, 2.8 assists. So it was a little bit all over the place in the stat sheet. He was good. I don't know. Their best player was probably Isaac McNeely last year. He averaged like a dozen points per game on the season. I know he shot at like 45% from three, which was crazy. So, and then they have a bunch of young big men. I was looking at their roster before I started recording here. And so if you were looking for depth and, young, forwards that you can develop who have some upside, like Carter Lang, Anthony Robinson, Jacob Kofi, Blake Buchanan, they have a bunch of young big men there who, might be guys who could help down the road. So, is Arkansas going to get one of these guys from Virginia and get immediate help from them? No. They'd have to really jump through some hurdles to make that happen. But could it be a situation where guys hit the portal and, you pick them up and you have them in practice and they make your team better and then you have them down the road? Yeah, absolutely, man. It would be something to keep an eye on. So we'll see if any of those guys actually opt to transfer. They have until November 17th to make that decision. I would imagine most of them would do that probably pretty quickly in an effort to kind of find their next spot and narrow that down. They wouldn't want to get into the season. I have a feeling there won't be that many of them who opt to do that because, man, you're so close. Like, just, I don't know, maybe they rally together, and I kind of hope they do under the interim staff, and maybe they could do something cool. I mean, this is a Virginia team that was probably not going to be a vintage Tony Bennett team, but they were good enough to be a tournament caliber roster there. And so hopefully they just play it out and do well. But if not, maybe Virginia's loss could wind up being Arkansas's gain here down the road. So definitely appreciate the flood of the questions there. And it's a relevant one. I know Arkansas fans absolutely love them some portal season, no matter when it happens. So, but appreciate you guys. Keep them coming. We're getting closer and closer to the season. This has been a lot of fun. Make sure you get tapped in, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Inside Arkansas. Check out all our written content at InsideArkansas.com. And I'll be back with you tomorrow morning. So it's been Curtis Wilkerson with the Pod at the Palace. Everybody have a great day. Appreciate you guys.